A Canadian mother has been sentenced to 3 years in prison after her 7-year-old son died of strep throat because she didn't take him to the doctor. Tamara Lovett, 48 years old, of Calgary, was convicted in January of criminal negligence causing death of her son, Ryan Lovett, according to reports. Ryan suffered terribly from this inaction, Justice Kristine Eidsvik said. He died in excruciating, unnecessary death. Ryan was bedridden at home for 10 days in March 2013. During that time, Lovett gave him dandelion tea and oil of oregano to treat his infection. Something that's sort of interesting about this case, just legally, is that the defense lawyer, Alan Hepner, who had argued the case should be dismissed because it took too long from the time Lovett was arrested until her conviction in January. The Supreme Court of Canada set out a 30-month time frame for Superior Court cases to go to trial in what has become known as the Jordan decision. The High Court, however, has allowed some flexibility for cases in which charges were laid before its order in July 2016. Lovett's case took 38 months to prosecute. That's sort of a footnote because the core of the story is that this mother was not getting her son the treatment that he so desperately needed. And when you go into the details of what an untreated strep throat looks like, it's just so tragic. It's a tragic way for anyone to pass, but especially for a 7-year-old boy.
So I'm curious whether you guys think she should go to jail. So first, let me say that I got a 7-year-old son, and as I read about how he was dying, oh God, it is beyond heartbreaking. He had swollen lymph nodes, oozing ears, and jaundiced eyes at the time of his death, and the infection led to organ failure. Oh God, please get your kids actual medical treatment. If someone tells you, oh, you sprinkle fairy dust on it and whatever insane stuff. Oh, the shamans used to sprinkle oregano on it. I don't care what the shamans did. Get the kid to a hospital. So on the one hand, I am enraged that she did not get him to a hospital and the poor kid died. Crushing as I read the story. On the other hand, do we think she meant it? I mean, and the judge says that the mother is clearly incredibly remorseful and heartbroken over it. Her son died. I don't know. Can we say that that's punishment enough or no? I don't have the answer here. What do you guys think?
So negligence, right, is different, right? There's an act and there's an intent, but if there's certain cases where you're negligent and that carries with it some kind of negative consequence legally. I totally hear you on the you know what we should do when my kid's sick? Take him to not a doctor. That is what she said. You know, we should use the medicine that was available 1,000 years ago. If you did that with anything else, you'd sound crazy. I need to be at the meeting, so I'm gonna get there the way they did 1,000 years ago. It's in New York, I'll see you in 5 months. Just
yeah. And this stuff like, oh well, the cavemen ate dirt. Yes, they also died at the age of 13.
Yes.
Right. So don't listen to that coarse crap. Believe in science and doctors.
But I think when you're sentencing the person and you look and you see that they're complete, you hear a statement of remorse. If she is wrecked, which she seems to be because her son died, sending her to prison doesn't bring her son back. I'm not an expert in sentencing, but 3 years is a long time to think about her son in prison, and I still think if she doesn't go to prison, she's gonna be thinking about her son for the rest of her life.
Yeah, and it also sort of brings up questions like, okay, is she liable to be a repeat offender? And I wonder, we don't have that information if there are other children or something like that. But then that also brings up the question well, I would think she has obviously learned her lesson from this, that this wouldn't happen again. And the judge herself acknowledges that she believes that her remorse is genuine. It's a really complicated conversation about ethics and do you put 3 years behind bars, but then also, you do want the gravity of what took place but then of course it is. You see that I'm having these conversations in my head.
No, I get you.
You go back and forth. You want there to be a punishment because that boy was absolutely punished in his last 10 days of life. I can't think of a worse way to go. But then imagine the guilt that everyone believes is genuine.
Prison.
You say prison.
Yeah, because it's such a selfish thing for her activity. She was holding true to these tenets, or maybe she just was like, you know what, I'm just gonna read, and she watches her kids suffer to death. The things were happening up until his death, and she still was like, you know what, I'd rather use the oregano tea. And you're dealing with, when I say things like, well, if she shows remorse, it seems like she's being rational, but these things don't seem rational leading up to it.
I know, jaundiced eyes. I mean, it does bring up the question of like, at what point do you just say, all right, this tea isn't working? You know, there's sort of a sense of.
But you know, so yeah, look, she was horribly irresponsible, and her stupid theories, I get what you're saying about being selfish. My stupid theories are gonna prove to be true, and I'm gonna test it on my 7-year-old. I couldn't be more upset about the situation. And look, part of our job is to talk about these stories, and hence we in some ways judge them. And and I feel terrible about it. But this is the conversations that I hope helps get us to a better place, so that someone watching this thinks, oh, if my kid's got jaundiced eyes, I need to get him to a doctor, right? So now, having said all that, I think where I come out on it, and of course we're not legal experts, and you have to be in the actual courtroom to make this decision, et cetera. But from an outsider's perspective, I think I would have gone for a heavier sentence that is suspended, so she doesn't go to jail. But if her kid, then I don't know if she's got other kids, but if they so much as sneeze and she doesn't take them to a doctor, then we're gonna have a different conversation. If you like this clip of the Young Turks, there's a whole live 2-hour show, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern every day, and you can download it or stream it and watch it without ads if you become a member. tytnetwork.com/join.